Doesn't matter, no?
Welcome everyone. It's got 2 o'clock. We'll make a start. We've had a forum. First with Karen Monroe. You'll speak to us about rural deco.
Yes, I just made an application for it to purchase
Just
water.
have a seat up there, be a bit more comfortable.
Now I can see that one short enough.
And you know everyone in the room? We've got, Mark Harris here. All right.
Hi.
Sue.
Yeah.
These are our 2 secretaries from the council. We've got Duncan Hell, Stuart Duncan, and Commander in Chief here.
I did an emergency application last year to the community trust to get 3,000 more of these funded, and according to Juliet eyesight, that probably lasts through to perhaps next season. So I've put an application in to get another 6,000 more of these funded. That's basically where we're at. So
One we did with the last year.
Yeah.
Cool.
so here, if we
So
would
you're
like.
gonna print another 5,000 of these.
Yeah.
Anyone, any questions?
Well, it's probably about the same price it was to do 3,000.
Yeah. Let's go and
To eyesight and into art deco, plus to people who do tours like Sam and things like that. And and sometimes when eyesight's closed, for getting information out to people who are visiting and things.
yeah. I'm quite happy with that. Got to move that. Oh, of course. That's right. Just like that, Karen?
No, not really.
That's right. I don't think a long way.
She's got thousands of dollars.
No, these days. Yeah.
I'm not asking for.
Oh, we're having a bad night.
That's right. Okay. Do that. Right. Thank you very much, Karen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for taking the time.
No worries.
You got a bag, right? Yeah.
We'll just wait for Julie Muir to turn up. And then you can talk, and if there's any questions that Julie can ask, or we should go. Right. Can I please have someone move the confirmation of the previous meeting minutes? Cylinders. Oh. I must. Oh, it's not here.
Yeah, condolences.
So I'd just like everyone to stand for a moment and respect for Barry Simpson, member of the Maniototo community for 87 years. God. Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes, Sue, you moved that? Sue, and second, please. Yeah. Duncan, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right to mind members, if they feel they have a conflict of any interest in anything that is discussed today, please say so. Annual plan budget fees. Oh, read the second walk. How are you? James, we've got you. Speak and talk.
Thank you. Yeah, largely unprepared. I got asked last night to come and speak or come and talk. Probably the most affected person in relation to Hall's Bridge and the closure of. We've got a cut in half, limited access. Yeah, it was going to happen. This has probably been 20 years in the making. Julie and my father will have had quite a head-banging session. We were talking about before, more than 15 years ago. It's not new, but the day's obviously come. Biggest issue, yeah, probably in the last 18 months is the lack of communication, lack of direction, lack of anything happening really. It's the outcome will be what it'll be, but as a someone in a private enterprise, I sort of need to know so I can move in a direction that fits my business. I've got my own bridge options. I've priced bridges. I've done consents. I've got the whole deal done. I've got my own in. I've told North last year to hold off. I had pricing. I had the whole lot done. Well, that pricing now is all irrelevant. In August last year, I really put my own farm bridge in, bite the bullet and do it. I was told to hold off by James McCallum in particular and others. I'm just hoping it wasn't the wrong call, particularly because pricing and supply of materials now out the window. Probably what I'm after is just answers and direction. I'll take whatever answer it is. It doesn't only Dan, but I need to know what it is. I was granted, we had a lot to do with Tim Cadogan. I was granted access over the bridge for stock and motorbikes. Immensely grateful for that. That would have made the farm just about to shut the joint down if I didn't have the ability to do that. Falcon Hogan installed bollards on the bridge that were wide enough to fit my side to side and get stock through. Every weekend I deal with vandals and idiots that smash bollards. Every Monday morning I go out at my own cost. I replace the bollards, I redig them in, I replace them, I fix them, I fix the wells, smash on the bridge and I try and drive around them. I do it most weekends. Last weekend at duck shooting, I chained the bridge. They just smashed the chain, broken padlocks, just wrecked the joint. Again, fixed it on Monday morning, my cost. The reason why I'm doing that is I feel if I ring Falcon Hogan and tell them, they will then see that as the opportunity to say, well, you know, the bridge isn't secure from the public. We're going to dig the approaches out, was what the original agreement was, dig the approaches out so the bridge is no use to anybody. I was given word previous, it was by Tim Cadogan that the contractors were going to turn up and dig both approaches out so there's no vehicular access. I negotiated stock and motorbike access. But since then, every idiot with a four-drive and bull bars tried to challenge that access. I have Central Engineering at the moment making me a forestry gate, box section forestry gate at my cost. I'm installing that next week at my cost. Doing the absolute best I can to keep the public off that bridge and keep my farm open. It's becoming quite something now, really. Again, I've got options. I can deal with my own options. I can build my own bridge. I can move on. I need to know. I've had great communication with most guys in council until the last couple of months. Lack of phone calls returned, etc. I've been quite reasonable. But the only person I've been reasonable with was an engineer who's talking that bridge with me and told me I needed to sell half my farm. I had his name and his card. I'd come knock on the door, but I don't know who it was, or I'd drown him. That is the calibre of people I'm dealing with. Standing on a bridge telling me the solution is to sell half your farm.
I don't know.
No, I'd like to know. I wasn't quick enough just to sneakily get a card. There was 3 guys that stood on the bridge. I've had 6 or 8 meetings on that bridge, hour-long meetings at that bridge each time with guys and trying to negotiate. I'm trying to negotiate my business. I'm not worried about the bridge. I'm just trying to negotiate my business with them. And yeah, I've had some that hasn't gone too well. And the other concern has been quite a bit of constructive. Some of those meetings with the bridge has been quite constructive. What I've learned in the last month, 6 weeks, is that the comments made by me, engineers, Hogan, CLDC representatives, all that kind of stuff, is that the comments have not gone further up the chain who it is. And when I speak further up the chain and say, hey, have you considered, you know, we discussed a long time ago, they're completely unaware of it. That's just wasting time. That's wasted my time, that's wasted 6 months, that's wasted everything. I've basically stood at the bridge and for nothing. I would at least expect that guys getting paid to stand around that they will pass on. You know, there's genuine concern there. And of course, the success of a project or a bridge there is a community benefit as well. But as I said, at this stage, I'm just trying to fight for access to my property. So it's, so yeah, what I'm chasing is just answers and timeframes, and I'll work around that. I have a contract on my desk for a Bailey Bridge. I can sign it within 2 weeks. I have a Bailey Bridge. I'm that far through processes with everything. I've got paperwork on my desk. I can get things moving in 2 weeks' time. But I need to know. We told in August last year to hold off, get to now, and be told. James McCallum rang me in February, he was away in January, February, March, and April to say that he was presenting a report to council, and then to be told a few days before each of those meetings that the report isn't ready, and excuses for each of those times. But that's another 3 months down the road. The putting it on bureaucracy, consultants, the whole lot. That's he said, yeah, a lot of time previous to that, I think, just to make a start, or at least have an idea. But the other concern too is either securing the bridge from public that think they have a right to use it, and if they are caught on it, then I will lose my right to use it in the meantime. And that's what I'm fearful of, very fearful of. Hence the cost and expense I'm going to secure public property for my private use. That's one hell of a concern.
Thank you, Joe.
That's right.
Julie, is there anything we can
Well,
tell
I
them today?
didn't come prepared for this.
No, and I'm not ambushing you, Julie, at all, so don't panic.
But I can tell you that James has been working very hard to try and find an affordable solution that and you're well aware that he has been working on that. He's been working with the Otago Regional Council. He took the information you provided us regarding the construction process that you've got. They were missing some pretty critical elements, which like abutments.
Yeah, they were for private use, not civil use.
Yeah, that's still need abutments. So he had that priced up. He's had we don't have structural engineers in our organisation. Not many councils would have and engaging. What they could come above the bridge, then they had to get accessing under the bridge with the boat. There was floods, there's all sorts of things. They consultants we use are national companies who have a few people. And then there's big events in other parts of New Zealand that people get pulled in there. So we can't help it. It's really is truly beyond our control. We are at the mercy of trying to find very limited resources in a very busy market. I just asked the guys as I was running out the door where things were at. They said they are currently waiting for the OIC to come back from about whether a culvert adoption would be acceptable. I think that's quite unlikely.
Because what
just because I don't think it will meet the requirements in waterways, but I'm not an expert in that area. We'll wait and see what they say. And the other thing that the guys have to do in putting a report up to council is they have to consider what other work needs to be done with council's budget and where the priority for that might have to be. So there's a number of bridges that have no alternative access, whereas this one has. While we appreciate it's a significant inconvenience.
There's a guy here that you're talking to that agreed to contribute and pay to get it moving. You guys pay me back, do whatever you want. I'll pay for a bridge. I'll let the money tomorrow. Get on with it. At least to buy it. I'll shut the road and run it private until you guys come up with money, 5 years, whatever. Operate that way. Now that was negotiated 6, 8, 10 months ago. I would build a bridge, full civil spec, 50-ton bridge. Got quotes. Obviously out of date now. And the road will be closed. It's effectively closed now, so it makes no difference. 5 years, if you guys have a budget, you want it, you buy it off me, the road gets open again. If you're 100k short in budget, ring me. It's not a $750,000 bridge, it's a $450,000 bridge plus abutment.
Where are we in the timeline for it? I think part of what James is saying is, hey, I know we're going to do something on my own means or not.
There's a year and a half, I said to Stu, before I've been offered, completely relevant, but I'll say it, I've been offered surplus railway bridges. This isn't for obviously road use, but for my farm use. They're getting cut and demolished as we speak. They can be cut to length for me. I can buy them, I can truck them underneath, and I'll be on my farm, and I can build a farm access bridge. Obviously to spec, but not for civil spec. So yeah, I can have tractor access over that river in probably a month's time. Because I own my crown. But I'm not going to do it, but I'm not going to do it. I mean, if you guys are 2 years away from bridge, I don't care. Just say, like, so I know I can work around it, but if in 2 years time, if you're still at this stage now, well, I'm well behind the eight ball. And tens and tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket, like I am now, for travel, time, trucking, the whole deal that's going on to run my business.
And if I can, on behalf of Billy, what we can speak to is the timeline of the report going to council. What we can't speak to as staff is when a decision is that bridge will be made, because that's a decision of the council.
Good. We're at
But the strategy.
Yeah, hoping to get it out this time, but, it's bridge.
For the strategy.
For an outline of timelines on the strategy, with some considerations that council can understand the complexity of the issues that we've been working with. Just, it's very difficult for us to say, yes, go and spend your money on this one when we have something here that we're aware of the problem that's so significant. So I think that the best that you will get from council is we won't be able to do this. Okay.
Oh, 100% we.
On the 1st of June. Council meeting and that would be as far as something could be.
But I guess progressing this one, it does get progressed at all. Yeah. Is have we considered the public-private partnership?
So there's a lot of complexities.
Yeah, I mean, I could really look at that if it's an option for the rate part doesn't have to fund that over time until it comes into budget or replacement or whatever, and it gets put into civil point and funded by you. And I don't know, has there ever been an option?
There's a lot of complexities.
Yeah, so it is.
Consider in its entirety.
James is aware of the situation in Southville that's been done. He started that conversation with me. So he was involved in project civil and public-private projects.
The council, in considering something like that, wouldn't normally consider one bridge in isolation.
No.
That's the challenge.
I'm aware it's sort of left field situation, but knowing that it's just the yes or no, yes we're progressing, no we're not, is all I need. If it's time frame different, but if it's no when you're going to replace it, tell me now, or tell me when you can expect whatever you want. But don't draw down another 18 months as you're sitting here now. That's just burning money for all of us. And it's people far better use than this.
Look, to be fair to James, I know he has been working very hard on it. He has been getting consultancy when he can. We then get the information back from them, and then what we're looking at is looking less achievable, so then he tries to find another solution. So he's been working very hard to try to
No doubt to change, no doubt at all.
Yeah, but it's not been easy.
Because it has been a 20-year, at least, that this has been on the cards. It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise in the last 18 months. Because 20 years ago it was to be pulled out, and I know we looked at buying a bridge back then because the bridge was to be pulled out and road closed.
So we've got a legal opinion on that, and I've talked about that with
Yes.
Father.
I'm aware of it. Yep, I know.
So that's just not.
But the point is, that's 20 years ago. It's not as if there's been 20 years to plan for an eventual of not that bridge, but a lot of them that were in the same boat. This isn't a surprise to anybody.
No, it's not. No. We've been saying that there's one of the issues with bridges. We have been incredibly resource constrained.
If a private guy come and get done, again, as Stu said, there needs to be legals involved, etc. But anything doable. There's been bridges replaced in South Canterbury in the flooding from last year. Done privately. It's happening around us. I don't know why it's not aware of it. It's happening around us. I can get names and details if you want them, but there are farmers that have built bridges on public roads to access to their properties in South Canterbury last year. Everyone would have a different set of legislation, but that's theirs. It's doable. It's just tricky, I know. Don't be glad. Good. Thanks, Shirley.
Thank you, Jane. Yep, I appreciate you coming in and voicing your concerns.
It's all I'm after is a yes or no. Time frames, criminal raps. Yes or no. If it's no, I move on for life. Well done. Good, yeah.
In preparing that decision, council has not staff.
100% agree, but it's in 18 months to not even have a hint of an answer is if that was a private enterprise, if you go broke, that's, I don't understand how it works any other way, so. Okay.
Tuesday.
Thanks, Pete. No, sorry to get grumpy at things, but. Thanks, mate. See ya.
Got some cases, there's another energy rates.
Yeah, it is frustrating, it's been frustrating, we've had discussions we've all had. And it's going across the region too, there's a lot of bridges in time. There's unfortunately lost 3 in one hit. Sort of thing.
Oh, we can discuss that later.
Yeah, but it's all
Yeah.
right.
We're up to annual plan, budget fees, and she's on.
Good afternoon. Firstly, an apology from Leanne, who would have liked to have been here today, but you're stuck with me instead, sorry. I'll take the report as read. We presented the draft annual plan and fees and charges to you back in February, and since then there's only been minimal change to the Maniototo rates. We just had to adjust some of the reserve balances, which has affected depreciation and interest across the business. In addition, there was a slight increase in the elected members' expenses across all the wards and councils. For Maniototo, the good news is there's only a slight change and it's impacted favourably, with a decrease of 0.4% being a $4,000 reduction of rates. The original we had for the LTP was 938,000 and it's gone down to 934. This excludes all the district-wide rates. Council rates, while still being finalised with council, is also projected to be less than initially reported at 7.7, which is positive as well. In addition to adopting the annual plan and setting the rates for the new financial year, council adopts the annual fees and charges. A complete copy of the fees and charges 2022-23 schedule is attached for information. There were minimal changes across the fees and charges from year 1 of the LTP to the proposed annual plan 22-23, and there's no changes been made to these since the presentation in February. Other than that, Kim and I are both here and happy to answer any questions.
Everyone quite happy? Stu?
So I just wonder if they could explain the Three Waters part charge. When does Three Waters take over, and is it obviously through the next financial year?
The transition for Three Waters is on 1 July 2024.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
For when we hand it over, but there's obviously costs even up until then.
So that's what this is in here.
Sorry, our info council's not working. So we can't see that. And what is that part charge?
It says it's part charges for water supply, wastewater and waste management.
On what page?
Page 19.
Sorry, I'm just not sure where you're reading that from.
So there it is that
if people build a new house
Right,
and connect partway through a year, they pay part of the charge.
oh, yes.
So it's part charge, it's nothing to do with water changing to a new entity.
Okay, so it's your 3 waters, not their
Yeah.
3 waters.
Yeah, so if you get a new house in
Yeah, I get
August,
this, yeah,
you don't get free water through till next July. You pay a part charge.
yeah, okay. That clarifies that.
Thanks, Julie.
Sorry, I was thinking, what on earth could that be?
Everyone happy?
Nothing much else has changed really, is it really? It's pretty similar.
It's pretty similar.
No, it's very much the same.
Duncan? Yeah. Can I have someone move that there? Please? Duncan Howell. Seconder, please. Sue Ambers. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. Here. Screen's gone.
Thank you.
Ally? You?
Yeah,
Yep, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'll just bring Morgan up with me. Now, have you all met Morgan before? Kia ora, Morgan, if you haven't met me.
We got Mark Harris here, you got Sue Ambers,
Aye,
Duncan Howell. And Stuart Duncan.
Great. So Morgan's come on board with us and is helping doing some of our grant reviews. So Morgan will talk about the grant application you've got before you shortly. To take you through a little bit of background about an approach, how we've changed things a little bit since last time we were here. So, excuse me, I'm just going to do this. Since we were here last time, there has been another review of the policy, and the focus of that was to ensure that we meet the needs of the board and the community. So you've been part of that process. In addition, once that policy change has been updated, we've tried to make some changes in the process to assist the elected members in your decision-making processes. And we would be keen to hear how you found the process this time around and any suggestions you might have. So that's something to bear in mind. One thing you'll see is that whilst we have no community grant applications, our plan is to bring community grant applications and promotion grant applications to you in a single report so that you will be assessing them alongside each other. And as part of that process, Rebecca, who's now the community development manager, officer, I can't remember, manager. Rebecca and I will sit down and we'll go through and have a look at the applications and make sure that where they sit, where they best sit, and work with the applicant to make sure they're comfortable with how we assess that, so that when we come to you, we've done that level of assessment before you consider them. What you're looking at today is an application to the second round of this current financial year's grant. Currently, you do still have the full amount of promotions grants, and there, as I said before, there are no community applications in this round. More than that, just touch on the application.
So we've had one application for the Rural Art Deco Maniototo Society, and they've applied for to print another 5,000 copies of their brochure for the Ranfurly Art Deco Museum and Town Walk. They previously have printed 3,000 copies of this brochure, and it's proved to be very popular among visitors and locals alike. So they've applied for the amount just to cover the cost of the printing, and I've recommended to cover that as well. Any questions?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, she spoke to us before, Karen.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty good.
It's obviously very popular. They keep going out.
Yeah, we're not allowed to speak. Timing.
all right? You're obviously happy with it, Al?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll move the
You've got
recommendation.
$5,000 there.
Good, so Stu's moved that. Stu Duncan, and a seconder, please. Mark Harris, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Aye, against? Very thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ali. Good to see you as always.
Thank you.
Mayor's report, is it? Tim's not there. Was he in the holiday?
He's restraining.
In Australia, mate. Was he stuck there or was he?
Yeah, I know, I haven't been stuck there.
He's on annual leave for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's right. Right, cheers reports, me. Haven't done too much. Every time I go to a meeting, I go and see somewhere, someone's got COVID. Someone coughs in my direction, so I leave them to it. But caught up with Stuart Patterson regarding the hospital demolition. They're still going through consultation with asbestos contamination, et cetera, and things like that. And the price they had, was it 2 years ago roughly, is more than tripled. That is without asbestos being removed. So I'm not sure what they're at. I don't know if the consent is all filed with it, Stu, you might know all about this. No, they're still going through everything. So that's where they're at. The trees at Peteroa, as you know, are all gone. Everyone's quite happy, I gather. I was talking to Drew, they were all removed and cut up for firewood and disappeared nicely. Good. I get an email from Raylene Hanson about the chairs and tables in the hall, setting up for meetings. And I emailed her back about that, if she had a complaint or anything, to go straight to the council and email her concerns to her. Do you get anything back? No? I don't know, it's about single tables or chair trolleys or. Yeah. Well, not seems to. No, sorry. As you know, my computer skills are really good. I'll give it to you. I'll print it off. That was, I just said go to the council, so I can't do anything. I was at a Zoom meeting, gun laws. What? Zoom meeting, gun laws. I just listened to the end, I turned off and I got the hard copy and read it. Have their way. They were talking about if you're under 16, you can't fire a gun regardless. And gun ownership, like there's a lot of clubs around, like Gimmerburn gun club, rifle club, you can't own a gun. So someone's got to buy all these guns, hundreds and hundreds of guns around the countryside owned by gun clubs. So someone's got to buy them and store them. It wasn't very pretty at all, or what they were talking about doing. Not being able to buy ammo and stuff like this unless you've got a certificate to buy ammunition. And it was really, really riveting.
Woke society we live in.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean,
Christ almighty.
you can't take a child out and let them fire a gun unless he's over 16. By the time he's 16, there's no point trying to teach a gun safety.
We should spend a bit more time raiding gang headquarters and learn about those that illegally going about their business would be all right. Load of bloody shit. I hope so. Sorry about that. I told you I was grumpier than normal today. Write that down.
I've seen him be grumpy too. Yeah, no, it wasn't. What these people were talking about it was just getting off the radar. It was absolutely ridiculous. If you wanted to go and buy a packet of ammo for a gun, like 22 bullets, you're going to need a certificate to say you could buy it. Yeah. I thought there were bigger things to worry about. And their main thing was basically, unless you were needed a gun for your job, you weren't going to have a gun license. There's people out there, like Bruce Smith's son Mark, he's 2 years still waiting for an interview for getting a gun license. People out there waiting 5 years to get their gun license back because they're not a suitable, fit person. You'd have no show, would you?
Can I make a comment on that?
Yep.
So with Tamer Kelly, who was in the police until 6 months ago, And the new guy, and I can't remember his name, he's a rural police liaison person. I've tried to organise, and in the process, I was just talking, I had a meeting, coffee with local constable before, Jess, that we're organising a group by the young farmers to have bulk licensing done in Renfrew. So I'm trying to mitigate some of those things that the local constable, local rural liaison guys have a day where all the young farmers and the rugby clubs and partners and get gun licensed, where the local constable can check the facilities. So hopefully in our community, because there was an article put up with Jess and Duck Shooter, we can clearly, there's a lot of kids around that have not got a licence, they come under massive scrutiny. So we're working with the police to try to get once a year or once every 2 or 3 years, get a bulk licensing done through the young farmer group, which they're happy to do. So hopefully we can make that process for the rural communities easier, because there's a nightmare.
The nightmare was what these ladies were talking about, you guys were talking about, it will not happen.
Well, as far as they're concerned, the police are happy with it.
Yeah, but these people.
Yeah, I know.
Who are they? Who are these people?
What was the name of them? The Gun Licensing Reform Committee or something it was. It's ridiculous. I had a 2.5 hour interview with a lady about my gun licence, and she went out there and the cabinet's welded to a steel container and it's got 6 bolts in it, and she tried to pull it off and she would not be right. And I was sitting there going, what are you doing? To myself, I'm thinking, what are you doing? She said, oh, that's quite secure, isn't it? In a 40-foot container that's got 2 padlocks on it and it's welded and bolted to the wall. So I have no idea what will happen. It'll be good if it does happen, I think.
Well, that's all we can try to do.
Yeah. I had a lot of people ringing me about the swimming pool being shut because I've got no staff. Did you get many phone calls about it? I gave them your number. No, yeah, got a couple, yeah. And I was explaining to them, when people have got COVID and you haven't got enough registered lifeguards, there's not a lot you can do about it. People that go do the aqua swimming, when it rang me, I said, well, if you go to Janice and see Janice and get the forms to become a lifeguard, then you could help. Do half a day every day, every week.
I don't believe we've had an overwhelming response to that invitation.
I said that.
I would say 0 pretty close.
It stops them though, in their trainings.
Yeah. Oh, we got one. We've got Patsy into it. She's doing it, isn't she?
Well, she was
Patsy
there
done
for
well?
one day. She
But
was there one day.
Patsy did, this year, but then, Paula, who held the qualification, she came down with COVID.
Hmm.
So we had no choice, there was no staff available down at Alexandra and Cromwell, so we had no choice to shut it. And I think they shut for a week, but then it reopened, and just in time for Patsy to do one shift. But the good news is she's quite keen to help out next year in an assistance role. It still doesn't help us out with having a qualified lifeguard. That search will just have to keep continuing.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of people who are prepared to know, but when you mention the life chart, it's just not interesting. You can do it, you can come down and do it.
But in addition to obviously the issue that we have out here with getting qualified people, there has also been obviously COVID running through the business, which has impacted more than just Renfrew.
Oh, yes, no, I totally appreciate it. It hasn't been that simple for anyone.
No, you throw a rope at the day.
How many lengths do you have to swim?
Like 4 or something. How many
It's
lengths?
5 3/4 in 6 minutes of our pool, 5 3/4 in 6 minutes.
On TV, they just
I sing quite well, 5 minutes.
You've done that.
That's right. And that's about all I've got. Thank you. I can move that. If I've moved that.
Oh, you haven't put CGV at the end, dawn service at the end there?
Pardon? I was going to let you talk about it
Oh, well, that's
because
good.
I knew you were talking about
How'd you know that?
it. Yeah, could someone second that, please?
Me.
So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Everything. Sue?
Yes. So I was at the Anzac Dawn service along the 12th year and the grandkids, and it was great. And it actually emphasised global warming, because years ago it was woolen hat, gloves, jackets, freezing. This year was hardly needed a jacket. It was mild and really quite
Big crowd.
big crowd, yep. And usual really good event. It was a good event. The grandkids and I went and did poppies at the cemetery, putting in the headstones of soldiers that were killed in the war and anyone who served. So a good history lesson for them. The other couple of things have come up. I've had two people ask me how the school is coming along in its redevelopment. I want to know what's happening to the library, the Maniototo Community Library. And I don't have no idea, so I said I'd try and find out for them.
We can answer that. So
You can?
there is a new library being built just near to where the current library is, so on site at the new school. So
Cool, on the near the road, that's good.
I think it's near the road, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because we have public access,
Yeah.
obviously. And so there will be a period of time in which the library closes to shift the books through.
Yeah.
But it's not substantial, that's my understanding. So,
Oh, okay.
so there will still be a library, it will still be available to the public.
Owning it.
Sorry?
School will own it, will they?
Well, they'll own the building.
Same arrangement.
Is that likely, is that like in the next 6 months? Or?
Do you know the date when ours closes?
The timeframe the project manager's given me is January next year. However, it could be sooner than that or it could be later than that because of product delivery. They're on a good time frame now, so it might happen before the end of this. May not. But the important thing to remember is the same service is going to be offered. It's going to be no different. It's just going to be in a lovely brand new building.
Yeah.
It's going to be the space is a little bit smaller, but the library staff are quite confident that they can still be delivering exactly the same service as they are now with a few less weedy books that do need weeded out. So it's all
Yeah.
positive.
Cool. All right, that's good. So we've had a few wheelies in the domain, which we haven't had for years. Did you know that, Janice?
No.
Just before duck shooting, someone came down and actually didn't go on the rugby field or the cricket pitch, but everywhere else. On behind the tennis courts and then further over towards Odlands on the grass there. But all over the dog walking area, huge big wheel ruts. So that was sad to see. But hopefully it's a one-off and doesn't happen again. But other than that, it's been quiet.
No, they were reasonably good marks, weren't they?
So we
Someone put a bit of time and effort into them.
did. Yeah.
Well, quite
Just
good.
did they roll them? I wondered because I thought, well, they'd be able to mow it with that, but looks like someone might have put a roller over them and sort of.
Someone looked like they went back and put all the turf back in places.
Yeah, it almost looked like they'd been rolled. It was quite reasonably.
Yeah.
Which was good. Yeah.
I went for a look. David Miller gave me a run and looked down for a look. But that was a week later though. So.
Yeah. So what's the rough bit of the domain we've got now that we never used to have? This side of the swimming dam, there's a whole big area where they don't mow. Someone's piled some dirt there, and now their rugby club must have had pods for irrigation, and they've been dragged over and they're in the long grass, and now you can't really see them. I should imagine they'd be worth a bit. There's a big long stretch of pipe with about, I don't know, 20 pods or something, and people will be driving over them shortly because you can't see them in the roughage.
The K-line did that.
There's K-line, they used to put K-line on the main ground. But I thought
Put the sprinklers in that one.
they're about 6
They're in the
or
ground
7
there.
pods long.
So anyway, they're in the long
Yeah,
grass.
yeah, I've seen them there.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're any good, but it seems like someone keeps, if they stay there, they're just gonna
Yeah.
turn into plastic amongst all the grass.
Yeah, well, that was where they had the BMX rights, didn't they, years ago? Is that in there? Is that where?
It's before this, we're about 2/3 of the way over where they used to have the sheepdog trails, they don't mow anymore.
Oh, okay.
Just,
Probably 80 or 90 metres that way from the ship, yeah.
yeah, there's broom and it's just rugged stuff. And these are in amongst the grass. Obviously they got dragged out of the way when they mowed. And they're
Will they be rugby clubs or are they?
I don't know.
Are they worthwhile asking them to move them?
I'll contact the rugby club. They are the rugby clubs. They set that up because they didn't like the baby. There was leakings with the baby. But my understanding is that since been There's no allegations since the time.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
So I'll follow up with the rugby club because they might want to remove them.
Oh, will you be able to do something about that? So send a letter or ring them, you ask?
I'll follow up with the rugby club.
Thanks, thank you.
Anything else, Sue?
No, thanks.
Mark,
No, got nothing ahead really, no, no one's rang me about it.
is that because you're particularly grumpy or?
I think so. Don't know where you get scrumpiness from, the way you drive me to it. No, I haven't, no one's been contacting me about anything really. The trees at Naseby on the side of the road, did the council chop them down or the landowner do it?
Landowner did it and the council did the traffic management, didn't they? Was that?
Yes, but our policy is that we'll provide traffic management at any time landowners want to cut down trees.
Didn't take long to happen, did it?
They trimmed all the ones around the side, they cut the big ones down. I think that, you know, the ones that lady was talking about, they're the ones up further up there.
I'm not sure.
I think they are, because actually, when you go right up there past the water treatment plant, the stock water plant, you know what I mean? There's those macrocarpers right beside the road, and they're starting to come right up the road. They've been trimmed before. Quite hot, they're probably 20 metres high.
Oh,
You know the ones I've been? I don't know if you're talking about those ones, because the other ones weren't in the way at all.
No,
When I was driving past there, I don't know what the problem was here.
I noticed.
Won't do any harm now, they've been trimmed back.
Trim back those ones that are broken really well, you know, those ones that stop trucks trim every time they go past, where all the fruit trees are, that guys planted all those fruit
Oh,
trees.
yeah.
But those ones that come out all over the road, they've cut them right back. It's quite,
On the highway.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
just so there's, just along the other side of the bush.
Trees up there.
Oh, who did
Oh,
it?
they did quite a good job there. Getting rid of those
You've
trees.
been asking
Then all
for
the way
it, yes,
down towards,
haven't you?
all the way down
Right, sure.
towards the village, those big willows.
They cut them all down, they're gonna build a house in there, so.
They've cut all them back too.
Duncan,
I'm pretty much the same as Harry, no one's been ringing me. And, I haven't got much, but just it was mentioned, I was at a meeting on Monday night, fire brigade, and they did mention about the trees in John Street. We've forgotten about, we're just talking about trees. The trees that down the centre of John Street, the fire truck was smacking them, it's heading out.
well, I can tell you all about them, because years ago when they pulled them all out,
Oh,
and
no.
you and Mason was the chief, he went to the council and said, do not plant any more trees here, because what happens is the kids stand behind the trees and watch the fire engine come out. And the fire engine hits it, and 6 weeks later they went along and planted trees again.
Yeah, they're supposed to plant low, just little shrubby, little
Yeah.
low things, but
So that was
Yeah, that was
many,
trees.
that was 20 years ago. Oh, probably 20 years ago.
Kids are growing up and they're on the fire truck.
Someone write it.
Yeah, it's true.
Write it down for-
it's the next generation.
Then a works request, can we do that now, well then?
Yep.
Because while you're talking about it, Doug, you and Mason texted me to bring it up in the meeting. The meeting, where's the pharmacy end, is where they want them trimmed, and there's a sinkhole where they punched the fibre rock before outside the fire brigade's got a cone on it. And it's a massive hole and they screwed the cone to the footpath.
I think I passed the fire station very much.
I was in that meeting, the same one Doug was there.
Gordy says we will get them through.
At ground level,
I'm not certain about ground level, but
Not a
he's
deal.
coming on to
Just,
that.
when they go out pharmacy,
Looking like you're trouble because you don't have any trouble with them again. And
you are in a good mood, aren't you?
you want to chop them down for the next 100 years, you want to fix a problem.
And the only other thing I've got is, Sue was talking about Anzac Day, and I was in a, fired up the car brang in a Turi the next day, and I was talking to a couple of people after the chocolates flew away, and they were going on about the Anzac Day parade here. They're from out of town, from the West Coast, and they went to the Anzac Day parade, dawn parade here, and they reckon it was great. It was great. So,
People,
No gunshots though, that was a bit disappointing.
you know,
Kids always like.
obviously,
to leap out of these
white
guns.
guns.
No, they had them in Clyde.
Guns.
Yeah, because we can
Cannons.
hear,
You had a cannon.
we can hear them almost out of the country.
Who was
one of the
Joe?
crank that one up.
Joe Lockhart usually jams the bolt and hits a few
I was
guys.
wondering if you did, because the army used to do it sometimes. When
Yeah,
they,
we saw them
Yeah,
going around.
Joe was the guy that got one, but he had a wee bit of a reloading problem.
You had cannons.
There's a gun near that Clyde monument that they
Right, we'll still
Get it
go.
well.
Yeah, well, if we put enough forms in it.
I think that's worth
That-
one
Right,
everyone
that's
did
me.
trailer.
Yeah.
Makes a big noise now.
That's what you want. Right, Stu,
Yeah, meeting, council meeting a couple of weeks ago, nothing too major there. Road has been coming up, bridges. Scott Lane on Thursday and James Patterson, I was fortunate enough to run into him at a rabbit board meeting last night, so I got a fair old whistle from that, but it's been addressed and I think it's just a big thing. For everyone, including staff and, yeah. So that's about that. I attended for 2 days, I thought, okay, incident management, level 4, whatever it is, so that was quite good. Mainly to do with, you know, if you have a big civil offence, protocols and part of the fire emergency training. We've got 2 more days courses and I'm hopefully through as a something. But it was just using with the civil defence and the councils and the police, and especially, we had a lot of scenarios where the, you know, containers on chemicals and exploding or flooding events and all that. So it was quite a thorough course. But it was interesting talking to the guy who took it, was an ex-police forensic scientist and forensic photographer, and he had to identify the bodies in Indonesia. There had 5,000 bodies to possibly identify. So here's some quite amazing stories. And I said, was there any looting of the bodies? He said, only by the German pathologists. What? So found that old, you know, Gran was over in Indonesia and she had jewellery on and she had a ring that was this and identified it. I said, well, they were on the bodies when they came into the morgue and they were taken off of the morgue. So a lot of them got sent home, but they got them all back and then they had to. So here's some major stories, but there's a lot of work goes on there, and a lot of work in the earthquake in Christchurch. So yeah, so that was quite good. Just met, had coffee before a lunch with the local cop, having a discussion with him. He asked me what could he do to do it better. I said, well, a lot of the issues we have in our wee community, but we're going to be changing some of the speed limits that we've just talked about. This next week we've got our hearings of it in council, just saying that, you know, there'll be people that we're coming into Ranfurly on the 50k or the zone here and zone there. That just be a wee bit not lenient, but there's a lot of people will be frustrated when they change and they might not remember. He's a nice enough guy, thoroughly enjoying it, and basically just make sure that he enjoys it. It was quite alarming to be at the Wedderburn pub on Friday night. There's 3 policemen standing outside in full high-vis uniforms. For what reason? They were going through all the vehicles looking for guns. That's understandable. That's their job. Quite intimidating. You're sitting in there, there's 2 patrol cars standing right outside the front and they're standing out the door. I'm not sure we needed that, but I think Dutch shooting was come and gone. A lot of people there. And I guess that's one thing. And he just said before, you know, it's quite interesting. He quite enjoyed it. The Dutch shooting part of it. Hopefully there's no incidents. He said there was no incidents other than minor licensing issues. Yeah, tourism numbers run down now, and look, this weekend we've got there's 133 registered for the hunt down at Helms and Dowlings. So Wedderburn's full again this weekend, and 140 horses, and so it's good to see a lot of those wee things still evolving in the communities. Because when winter comes on, the trail stop it. I just noticed lunch. I had lunch today at Sanctuary in Ranfurly, and there's 3 people come into the cafe, maybe. So things are slowing down financially to a lot of these wee businesses. So it's always good to bring a bit of that foreign money in. Other than that, yeah, we've got hearings this week for the speed bylaw. Yeah, see how it goes. Yeah, it'll be, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday. That's about me, really. Going into winter mode.
can we have a yarn about bridges in between here? So they're talking about a timeline. Will you get back to James Patterson and say after your next meeting and say we're not going to do anything for 2 years, or?
I think
What's
we
gonna happen
can.
here?
I think we can put enough information in front of the councillors to enable them to understand the risks of making a commitment to replacing one bridge on a very low volume road that has alternative routes.
So is
Is that
he the
Mark?
only one that uses it?
Now, there's another lady that's quite close to it who came and spoke to you
Oh, yeah.
at submission time, and she's quite affected too.
Yeah,
She lives in the old greenhouse used to be
Just on top of the hill.
Paul McTammy's.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I didn't bring up there. We had a regional road authority meeting with Wakatahi, and I just said them tongue in cheek, it's all very well, but out of Timaru South, I think there's 5 projects that Wakatahi funding, 2 roundabouts in Central Otago, something in Invercargill, and something in Oamaru. I'm not exactly sure what they were. And I'm on tongue in cheek that, we're struggling to get bridge money. I said to Sanctuary about it. They said, oh, there's plenty of money for upgrades of bridges and plenty of money for that, and I don't know if there is. Whether they're in time, that might be part of our strategy, if we can try to tap more money because of our historic. They made out there's lots, I don't know what lots is, but.
So up until, we only found out what money we were even getting in September last year for the 3-year period, or October. Up until the beginning of July, we were getting 100,000